Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Okay, we're not going to be talking about friends. We're going to be talking about friendship or friendship or friendship. I don't know, however you want to play it. But anyway, Earth's mightiest critics are here to discuss one of the strangest, funniest, and I'll say the cringiest movie in
Mm-hmm.
a good way of 2025,
Mm-hmm.
Friendship by Andrew DeYoung, a director I'm not familiar with, but I
Mm-hmm.
definitely want to follow.
It's
Um,
his directorial and screenwriting debut.
you're
So,
kidding.
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so Katie, since you seem to be the president of the Andrew DeYoung fan club, why? I'm not going to say why does he get this shot? Like, does he like come from the comedy world, or do you know anything about his like what his deal is, or is just like, hey,
I have no idea. I just was looking up some stuff on IMDb, and it said that this is his directorial debut. And it's like, well, the only negative thing I have to say about that is that, I mean, you set the bar
Mm-hmm.
pretty freaking high on comedy with this one. But yeah, this is the way. If this is gonna be your debut, it's like kudos to you. Because yeah, this is definitely going to be in my top 10 for 2025.
Yeah.
awesome. Well, we're already kind of getting into it, so let's pull back a second and just say who are we? What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about friendship, which is playing in a bunch of places right now, but it opens wide. I believe this coming weekend is going to be the big
Mm-hmm.
blowout. You can see it everywhere.
Oh.
It's coming out courtesy of A24, and that's something I think is key to our discussion of this movie. This is an A24 kind of like bro comedy, which if you know anything about A24, this sort of boutique indie studio that in the last decade or so has really made a name for itself, you'll understand that they traffic in kind of weird niche artsy movies. So to see them tackle something that's this kind of broad is pretty fascinating. But anyway, I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Katie Glidewell, the blonde in front, and film obsessive, and Mike Crowley of You'll Probably Agree. So thank you all for joining. We were kind of talking before the before we went live because Katie was asking to set the table, figure out if this is going to be one of those episodes where we're all kind of battling it out.
I just like to be prepared. I mean, I'm going to stick with I'm going to say. I just like to know where we're coming from.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate it. I'm just it because it was a very interesting question because I didn't quite know how other people felt. And Mike and I, we were at the same press screening a couple weeks ago, and there was a very different reaction kind of in the room after it was over. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, this is not a conventional kind of mainstream comedy, although it does have a premise that could be, this could have come out 20 years ago and been on a double feature with Old School. You've got this kind of schlubby suburban husband dad played by Tim Robinson. He's married to Kate Mara's character, who is
I think it's like
Tammy.
Tammy or something
Yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they have a teenage son named Steven, and they're moving out of their house. They've recently had, they've kind of, as a family, they've beat, I believe it was a form of cancer that Tammy's recovering
Mm-hmm.
from.
Mhm.
And they're kind of on hard times. And in the process of moving, there's a new family moving in, or a new couple moving in down the street. And Craig that's Tim's character, gets their mail by mistake. So he goes to deliver this package, opens the door, and it's a rugged looking, mustachioed, cool as hell Paul Rudd. And there's like an instant kind of man crush that happens. It's mostly one sided. But yeah, Craig becomes he sort of studies at Austin. That's Paul Rudd's character's name. Studies at Austin's feet as to how to kind of be cool, be aloof, kind of get in a little bit of trouble. But because Craig is so uncool, he causes a lot of unintentional problems for himself, for Austin, in Austin's circle of friends. And yeah, things go awry. And the rest of the movie is this sort of antagonistic relationship between Craig and Austin, and also Craig and his wife and son, and Craig and himself. So there's a lot this movie has on its plate and on its mind. That being said, I think it's a pretty lean comedy. It's a mean comedy. It is one of those films that I haven't seen in a while where I wanted to duck under my seat in secondhand embarrassment frequently throughout the screening, because it's so sharp, so dark and cutting, but also hilarious. Now, it's not perfect, and we'll get into a little bit later as to why that is. A few movies are perfect, but you know what I'm saying. But off the bat, Katie, we kind of got your high level reaction to it, but did you have any expectation going in? Had you watched I know you're famously anti-trailer, so did you know anything about this going in?
No, I knew absolutely nothing. I don't know Tim Robinson. I know he has a TV show, I think on HBO or Comedy Central. I'm not sure. People have made me aware of it.
Netflix, I think.
Okay. Some people I know do not like it at all. And I had seen Paul Rudd in an A24 film earlier this year. So I actually went in with some kind of low expectations. And I was so pleasantly surprised that since we're talking in the beginning, as you said, we find out that Tammy has cancer, and in the beginning of the film they have they're kind of like at a group cancer kind of thing, or I don't even know if it's a group cancer thing, but it's just a meeting to like get stuff off your chest, and she's talking about her journey and the difficulties she's had, and if she'll ever orgasm again, because it's all about truth in those situations, and you want to get feedback from people and feel like you can be open with people. And we don't know Tammy and Craig's relationship at that time. They're sitting next to each other, but they could have been strangers. And when she's saying that, his face and his reaction to that, it's like, okay, dude, I mean, she's letting it out. Girl, I get it. Been there, all that. But then when they ask him how he's doing, and he's like, because she has said, it's like, will I ever orgasm again? I don't know. These are questions I have. And he's like, I'm orgasming fine. And I'm like, and now I know what this type of movie is. And I am going to buckle my seat and prepare for the ride, because this is going to be fun. Craig, I mean, awkward is so much his character in almost every situation. Like, there's very few circumstances where it's not awkward, even like with his wife and his son, at work, everywhere. It's I don't know if Andrew DeYoung like put in the script, okay, get in a situation and whatever you're doing, just make that the most ick factor that you can do. And it's like, just do that. And Tim Robinson, it did it to his 13. Like, he didn't even make it to a 10. He just hit it out of the park. And as you said, you were thinking old school. One of the things with Paul Rudd, as soon as he opened that door, I got that Anchorman vibe from him. Yeah, and I was like ready to see if he was going to talk about Sex Panther. And he kind of has a little bit of that voice, but definitely he toned it down. But yeah, the only negative, well, there are a few negatives, but the one negative I have is that I have to buy it or see it again, because I saw it at the Chicago Critics Film Festival, packed house at the Music Box Theater. So that's like close to 800 people in that theater. I'm in the front row. One of my negatives is that I missed out on some things that were being said because people were laughing so much. And myself, because I was like, shit, what was that? I'm trying to write it down. I'm like, stop laughing. Like, I can't. I'm like, and then at some points I couldn't stop laughing. I loved it. I know some people who did not, but I think that's more of just Tim Robinson and his show on Netflix. I think maybe if they hadn't seen that, they might like it. But I have been telling people that it's like they need to go see this film.
Briefly, the Tim Robinson show, it's weird because my brother was in town visiting over Christmas and he recommended that I watch this. And it's called I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson.
Mm.
And we watched like a couple episodes and it reminded me of like The State, the old MTV show. But it's like, 30 years on, it's cranked up and like really wildly inappropriate, off the wall kind of humor, sketch comedy. And I loved it. In fact, I need to go back and watch some more. I think the issue is that he brings some of that zany, manic energy into this role, and it works in places, but other times it feels like there's a scene that requires a little bit of manic energy, but to your point, every time he opens his mouth, he's like at a 13, and it's like, oh, okay, let's bring this back. This is not old school. This is A24, a little bit of calibration, but who am I to critique? Well, I'm a film critic. So before we get further down this path, Mike, tell me about your experience with friendship.
It's funny. Everyone says they were laughing their ass off during this movie, and at times I was, but it was more internal for me because when I watched this film, I kind of picked up on this is a movie about a guy who doesn't know how to talk to people, who is probably on the spectrum or something like that, and probably needs help, like mental health help really bad, and never gets it. And this is sort of the repercussions of it. And it's just someone going through one meltdown after another, who doesn't know how to handle rejection, who doesn't really know how to fit in society. But yet he ends up fitting in because his wife, in one line of the film says, my mother was married to a narcissist and now I am. So it was kind of an interesting character study about someone, who's kind of a mental or like a social delinquent. And it's kind of interesting how Paul Rudd sort of represents the hypocrisy in people where, they pretend to be your friend, because he like crosses the line early in the film by kind of like intruding with his job. And then when Craig does that to Austin, he's doing the same thing. But then Austin's like, what the hell? You can't do that. And it's like, are you kidding? You literally just called him minutes ago and told him, hey, go leave your office and come to the source with me, which, yeah.
Well, and this, I get where you're coming from, but I think it's a little bit different. And this is, I want to say, I'm going to go kind of ping pong all over the place because I don't have prepared notes. I saw this movie 2 weeks ago, so we're just going to freeform it, Mike and Katie.
Good. Same.
I was at that screening with us at the Lake Street screening room with a number of the other Chicago critics. Was Pat McDonald, Uber critic, friend of the show. And I messaged him afterwards because I'm like, am I crazy? Because that movie was good, right? And he's like, yeah, it was great. Mm-hmm. And the reaction to the other critics that I talked to after the screening was over, a few folks, some like left, some hung around, but it was just overwhelmingly negative.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't quite understand it. And the more I thought about this movie, the more I thought that if you're approaching this as it's just a big, dumb kind of bro comedy, I could kind of understand that. But there's so much more going on with these characters from the open. I'll get back to your point about the intruding on the job. Don't let me. Let's put a pin in there.
Yeah, go.
But the opening few seconds of this movie, literally the opening few seconds, clued me into my having to deal with something and like lock in and not just, there's gonna be like, dick and fart jokes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kate Mara, who plays, Tammy, the cancer survivor, when she's talking in that support meeting and her husband's sitting next to her, if you watch her hands, she's constantly fidgeting with her wedding ring. And as Craig starts to talk, she almost slips it off her finger, but then it kind of pops it back on. And that's how the film starts. And then the relationship devolves and then evolves, or at least she does. And they kind of come to kind of an understanding, you think, and then he, of course, blows it at the end. Hold on, before we go further, I'm going to put on the spoiler banner because we're really going to get into it. But as far as the job thing, it's interesting, Mike, because I think the reactions there between the two characters to a very similar situation speaks to one of the things this movie is getting at, which is, Austin is presented as, and it certainly appears to be in the mind of Craig, a very kind of masculine man. He's not like macho where he's like way into football and beating people up, but he is very much his own guy. He likes going outdoors and doing stuff and getting into trouble and having adventures. So when he calls up Craig on the phone and says, "Hey man, come out with me, leave your job and come, let's gonna go explore the sewers." There's a difference because he is inviting Craig to come out. Now, if Craig was
that's a good point. Yeah.
if Craig was truly the Austin type, he would have said, "Look, man, I'm in the middle of something important. We're going to hang at 5 p.m. I'll come over, or we'll go do this later." Craig goes to Austin's workplace to kind of do what he thought Austin was doing with him, like kind of crashing in on him. But there was like the invitation. It's almost like the vampire thing, you let him in. But he shows up to his workplace and just acts a fool. He embarrasses himself in front of this little kid who's supposed to be part of this segment and really puts Austin's job in jeopardy.
Yeah.
Whereas Craig put his own job in jeopardy by listening to his friend's advice. So, but throughout the film, there are these like little moments and these little hints of Craig trying to be something that he should have been building towards all of his life, which is an assertive, focused, kind of driven man. But as Tammy says, when Austin calls the house and invites him over, to her, he's like, "But I have plans tonight, or I'm doing stuff." And she's like, "No, every night you sit in that chair at 8 o'clock and you don't move." He's like, "But I was going to go see the new Marvel. We should go see the new Marvel."
Yeah.
Which I love that running.
Yeah, it's a great fourth wall breaking joke because they have Ant-Man in it, and he freaks out like when his like coworkers start bringing up Marvel movies.
Right, no spoilers.
And he immediately kicks him out. Yeah.
But that's the thing is like there's so many layers to these characters that on one, if you're completely not locked in, this could all pass you right by. But I think because I don't know if other studios passed on it or if Andrew DeYoung kind of aimed this at an indie studio because like, I'm going to do something broad but also very specific in a lot of ways, and it's going to go dark and weird. Can you handle it? I think A24 is like, that's what we do here.
Yeah. And I think I enjoyed it because Craig always crosses the line and he doesn't know when he's crossing the line. And he just kind of reminds everyone of that one person they know who is always like butting into the middle of conversations, trying to be the center of attention. And then like, if you do something, he's going to take it to the next step. Like when they're boxing and, he like kind of punches him and then he just like completely knocks Paul Rudd out. And I think that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back as to how they wouldn't hang out anymore. Or it could have been something else. It was 2 weeks ago, so it could have been another scene. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think that
scene.
Yeah.
I feel like it was that scene, but it was when Craig put the soap in his mouth and it was like, my bad. Oh, and it just kept going on. It's like, oh no, did I do that? And he puts this over there. Oh no, I'm a bad baby. And I'm like, oh my God. And it's like, you can see what I loved about that scene though, is that not only did Austin, because Austin has his friends and he's like, this is my, neighbor Craig, who's the coolest guy in the world. I mean, there was a mutual love going on. Obviously, Craig was definitely a little bit more enamored, but it's one of those things, it's that garden time when you're in a new relationship. It's like, ooh, let's do this. It's like everybody's perfect and all that stuff. But when he does that and he puts the soap in his mouth, you can see everyone's face. It's like they just have that, they've got the ick. And it's like Craig does the ick so many times. But that's the first one. That's the one that it's like, no, this isn't going to work out. And then it just goes downhill from there.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like immediately when Paul Rudd says, like, I don't want to hang out with you anymore, you can kind of just tell by looking at Craig's face, like, he's going to, like, fuck everything up for everyone. So,
Yeah. The trailer for I did watch the trailer. Katie, I don't know. Have you gone back and watched the trailer for this after you saw the film?
I have not yet. No.
I really recommend it.
Yeah.
Because I think it works because even as someone who doesn't watch if you it's made for people who don't watch trailers, I think, because it doesn't give too much away. It kind of gives the broad strokes of the film, but what it does is this great juxtaposition again in terms of marketing. Like Universal would never market a movie this way. It plays more into the kind of sinister, dark, and weird nature of this movie, but then it does a great thing with the critics' quotes. So as you're seeing all this like weird, horrible stuff happening, you see the funniest movie I've seen in decades. Laugh out loud, hilarious. So it's almost like watching a trailer for The Shining and someone saying you're never going to have a better time at the cinema.
Have you ever seen the recut Shining trailer where they make it like a family film?
Oh yeah, and they have
yeah.
was Salisbury Hill or by Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, like they did the same thing with Glengarry Glen Ross, and yeah.
I didn't see that one. I'll have to check that out.
There's a couple of them, yeah.
I remember they changed the name of the movie to just Shining. It's a father and is trying to connect with his son.
Yep.
But honestly, there's almost a connection here because I think one of the reasons that Craig has so much trouble fitting in with this group of guys is he doesn't know what his authentic self is because he doesn't have any friends. He's completely lost in like pop culture stuff and his job, which is, completely meaningless because he does like digital marketing or something like that. And Austin actually kind of calls him out on it. Like, you don't actually do anything, helpful or productive with your days.
Especially like when he charges at the guy in the meeting, you're like, oh yeah, he's trying to be like a tough guy here.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Sorry,
he has
I cut you off.
but he has no outlet. So he kind of projects onto other people like, oh, these are the wild and crazy guys. So I'm gonna be wild and crazy too. But what he doesn't pick up on is our introduction to this group of dudes. Our first real intro is when they're kind of sitting around in a circle and Raphael Sabarge, filmmaker and also friend of the show, is talking. He plays a character named Garrett who's opening up about how he's got this 13-year-old daughter and like guys and boys are starting to look at her and he doesn't quite know what to do as a dad. And they break out into song and it's kind of like this weird bonding moment. It's absurd, but it's also incredibly touching. But Craig doesn't quite know how to interact with that. Like, oh, is this the group where you sing, funny songs that cheer each other up or, just get, crazy? It's almost like an amalgamation of every awkward moment from Ben Stiller in Meet the Parents, just like cranked up to, as you put it, Katie, 13. The boxing scene that you referenced reminded me of the water volleyball scene in Meet the Parents, where he's like, everyone's egging him on because he's not doing very well. So like, come on, Fokker, get in there and be aggressive. And he spikes the ball and breaks the bride-to-be's nose, and it's a complete disaster. That's Craig this entire film. He never can quite get it right, even though he wants to fit in so bad.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because like every situation that he's in, I mean, even and almost especially at home, when he's with his wife and son and they like kiss on the mouth and he looks at them and is like, do you normally do that? And I'm like, you live with them 24/7. And it's like, he doesn't know them. And that's like his coworkers all bonded, all that. He's the odd man out and stuff like that. So when he has Austin and Austin's encouraging him, it's like, yeah, you should do this. You should do that. He's like, you know what? Right, I should. But meanwhile, Tammy, after going through this cancer battle and it's been a year and she's overcome it, like when she's trying to grow her business, like, or she's outgrown her business, like she needs, a van, she needs different things. That's one of the reasons why they're moving. Cause I thought they were moving like an upgrade to a bigger house and stuff like that. But instead of getting her the van, he buys a set of drums because Austin said he should buy. And it's like, how selfish are you? It's like every single instance when it's like, please don't do that. Please don't. And you did it. And you did it. And then you just, again, crank that up to 13. It's like, okay. Yeah. But you think that he kind of has a redeeming quality. And I gotta say, I loved Kate Mara in this, especially, I don't know. There's just so many scenes where it's like I feel like it had to have been really hard not to lose it on set all the time because they're so funny. And then to see Jack Dylan Grazer and how big he is, like he's a man, like he's not the little kid from It anymore, and it's like, oh,
that's where he's from. I knew the name and he looked familiar, but wow, okay.
Because it's one of those things when I see actors and actresses that, you know, I've seen them in film, like, because Kate Mara, I think the first movie that I saw her in was Brokeback Mountain, because she was Heath Ledger and Michelle Williams' daughter grown up. So to see her go from that to having a child, to playing an actress, playing a mom who has a child that's Jack Dylan Grazer's age, I was like, God, I feel really old right now. Like, how did that happen? But she killed it. I thought she did such a great job because it's like, it's got to be so frustrating playing a character who has been married to that for at least probably 20 years or so. And just like everything that's going on in her relationship and like with her business and, you know, everything, overcoming cancer. It's like, I thought she was great, and good for her that she, you know, finally had an orgasm in the sewer, and I'm very proud of her for that.
Yeah.
Go see the movie, everybody. Yeah. You'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And Craig Robbins, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Oh, all right.
You go, Mike. Sorry.
Okay. The great thing about Craig as a character is, like, I hate him, but I also feel really bad for him. It's like, man, if this guy just learned, like, just how to fit in society, he wouldn't be this weirdo, but he just constantly apes what other people do. So then he thinks it could be a part of him, and it doesn't work out. And then it was interesting to see Paul Rudd in a role where you're like, oh, it's Paul Rudd. He's a fun guy. But then as you get to know him, you're like, oh, he's kind of a fake jerk. You know, first off, he has the wig on him that actually like reveals that he's getting older, which is kind of like a joke, like, oh yeah, Paul Rudd's ageless, but not really. And also, he tries to be polite to Craig, but the way he turns him down was not the best way to handle it, and it kind of just showed he didn't want him within his little tribe because he's an annoying pain in the ass, but also he kind of wanted to be safe within his own little society.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing is, I think that there's not a great way to handle that situation. I think he did it as well as he could.
Yeah.
And Craig is a fascinating character because watching this movie, if you cut through all the antics, you have to ask a few questions. Like, was he always like this? Like, what attracted Tammy to him? Was it that the fun-loving, zany guy that he was in his 20s, that was kind of fun and spontaneous and weird, and okay, we can build a life together, and now we have this, you know, great son. I would love, not really, but a prequel to this, because I kept thinking, like, how did Craig handle Tammy's cancer?
Yeah.
And did he change? Well, but I mean, did he change during the course of this? Because the relationship, the fact that he said, and you brought this up, Katie, he asked, you guys really kiss on the mouth, you know, his wife and his son, like, he should know this. If he was around and observant, that would be something that doesn't shock him. It's almost like we're finding this out at the same time that he is, which should not be the case, especially if she's in the dining room with her floral business, getting stuff together, we assume every night, because business is starting to pick up. And as she says, he's always sitting in that chair. And the teenage son is coming and going, very affectionate with the mom, doesn't leave the house without saying goodbye and I love you. He would have seen this before, unless he's completely clueless and just like completely zoned into his phone, which also might be the case, and also lead to his alienation, his frustration. Perhaps he feels that it's been so long since he was engaged with them that it's sort of like too late and he doesn't kind of know what to do. And so when he gets a chance to make new friends and kind of like invent this new personality, he can kind of get a do-over. But and then when we look at the Austin character, you're right. He's like the handsome, you know, rugged kind of weather guy, but he's got his own incredible insecurities that come out when it's a fragile barrier too. It doesn't take much to reveal what's underneath. But at the end, I don't hate either of these guys. I feel like there's still people I would want to hang out with. Craig's case, a very limited basis, but I feel like they're just people trying to find themselves in a world that expects things of them, but they, in their own ways, don't quite know how to live up to those expectations because they haven't been clearly defined.
Yeah. Yeah.
True. I mean, I like the fact that when we meet Austin and he's talking about the rocks and the geology thing that he has, and he just, like, you can see Craig's face like light up, like this is a brand new thing that he's learning about, and it's like, wow, rocks are cool. It's like, oh my gosh, I never knew about this. And he's talking about like being on the news, and he really wishes he was on the morning show and all that. But then when when Craig, inspires him, he's like, do it, apply, all that stuff. So they kind of like are working off each other.
Yeah.
And then Craig just really F's it up. But then when you see, and I know what you said, Mike, that it was awkward, but honestly, there isn't an easy way to do that. So the fact that Austin did it just straight out, it's like kind of like, just yanking that tooth, and you know what, we're not going to hang out anymore. And then you realize that even when Austin got what he wanted, we're thinking like, oh, this guy's got it made. It's like his life actually got worse. Like, he's talking about how he's being like kind of bullied, made fun of in the morning, and it's like so much pressure and all this stuff. And then the thing where it's like he's wearing a toupee that no one knows. So it's like I felt for Austin with that it's like, when you think someone has everything that you want, it's like, yeah, but that once they get it, they may not realize, like, I wish I could go back to the way it was. It's like I liked it a lot better. Yeah. And what was the other thing? Sorry, I blanked out. I forgot. I know.
Well, if it pops in, jump back in, because I want to try and catch all these. This is a movie that sparks a lot of conversation. So, but something interesting you said there, Katie. Oh, did you think of it?
Yes. Okay. The whole thing because the reason why we Craig meets Austin is because for some reason the post office keeps dropping off the packages of Austin's to Craig. So when Craig goes to Austin's house, the fact that he goes over the fence and then goes into the house, and then it's just like walking around, all that stuff, goes into his office, then finds the gun. We're talking spoilers here. Finds the gun, but then takes a call from work that is and I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? It's like every time I want to try and give Craig a benefit of the doubt, and it's like, it's okay, dude, stuff happens. But then when he does stuff like that, and I'm like, what the
well, it's again, I think this works with the theme of the movie. He is very much a guy who's in his own head, and the problem is reality likes to come knocking on the door. So he's like, when he gets over the fence, like, yeah, okay, I'm in the fence, there's nobody around, I can just walk around, do my thing. But oh no, I forgot there's that important work call, because he's doing a marketing campaign with the mayor, and it's the huge client for his firm and everything. So he kind of has to take the call. He can't not pick up the phone because it's a scheduled meeting. It's not just a phone call. It's an actual like Zoom meeting. Right. And then to compound it, Craig's wife is home. We got to talk about her in a second, because it's weird that when we first meet Austin, sorry, I think I may have misspoken. Austin's wife is home in the house, and Craig has to kind of escape without being seen. When we first meet Austin, he does mention that he has a wife, but you almost don't believe it, because he's got everything kind of set up almost like this cool like bachelor pad, and he's got the freewheeling nature of someone who's very unattached and kind of aloof. I believe the first time we see her is at the breakup scene on that front porch, where she's kind of behind him in the house. See, and Austin has a different disposition. To your point, Mike, he's kind of trying to be very efficient and businesslike and cut it off, and like, maybe I'll see him down the block or something, but I'm getting this guy out of my life. You wonder if the friend group had said something to their wives or something like, hey, who's this weirdo who's trying to like become part of our group? He seems dangerous and sketchy. And so she's like talking to him like, no, you get him out of here. None of this. It's a very different kind of demeanor. And you also wonder, to something that you had said, Katie, about Craig looking up to Austin. Is Austin the Craig to somebody else in this world that we aren't seeing? Like, is there an executive or somebody that is in his kind of line of work that he looks up to and wants to emulate? Because there's a key scene where his coworkers do prank him. They have him dress up to go to a Renaissance fair that's in a shopping mall. And when they show up to do the live spot, there's no Renaissance fair. He's the only one dressed up like a medieval elf or whatever it is. And he's like, this is, he's got to play it off. He's like, this is pretty funny, you know, making fun of the new guy. This is Austin, whatever, from Channel 7. It's humiliating. He doesn't deal with it in the way Craig would, I don't think, because I think Craig would have had a meltdown and started like breaking the camera or something. But it does speak to these different layers of like, for everything that you're seeing on screen, it's very easy to imagine an entire world happening outside of what we can see.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder in the film, like this thought just struck my head. Did Craig sort of unconsciously want to destroy his life so he could start over because the tension of life, having to keep a job and a kid and, you know, keep your family afloat while also like trying to have a friend? Did it just become too much for him where, you know, subconsciously he thought, okay, I'm going to ruin it so then I can start over or, you know, get a new fresh start on life? Because he is kind of narcissistic and only thinks about himself in a lot of ways and not really ever. I mean, maybe, like you said, I wish there would be a little bit of backstory between the wife and the cancer treatment and how he treated her. But I kind of feel like he may have subconsciously, intentionally destroyed his life because it just shows how some people, when they grow up, they don't know how to handle it. And it eventually leads to, you know, a catastrophe for some, and for others like Austin, you know, they're okay, but they're never really truly happy.
I don't know if I like where you're going here, Mike. I don't know if it's that he wanted to torpedo his life because he figured he could build something different or better. I feel like there's almost just this kind of self-sabotaging nature to guys like him. And, you know, I can certainly understand that in various degrees, but he sees a character like Austin who can do all these outrageous things and never get caught. The whole thing we've been referring to with the sewer, which if folks have stuck around, I'm hoping you know what we're talking about because we are talking spoilers. But Austin takes Craig like through the woods and into this sewer system that runs through the entire length of the city, and it can bring them up into certain buildings, including into City Hall. And so they're sneaking around, and Austin doesn't get caught. He's been doing this for a long time. And Craig's like, wow, I can't believe this. So Craig sees all the outrageous things that Austin can get away with. He's like, you know what? I can do that too. But he can't because it's kind of like DC and Marvel, where Marvel took the time to build up this franchise and lead up to Endgame. And DC are like, oh crap, we got to have Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman fighting it out in our second movie. And the results were critically disastrous, as we all know. Katie, it looks like you wanted to jump in with something.
Oh, no. I thought, no, I think you nailed it. It's like, you know, he sees Austin doing all these things and he's like, you know what? Yeah, I could do that. And it's like, but he can't. Or it's like, I don't know. In some ways in the film, it's like he feels like he's been stipend. Like, I don't know, you know, my true self hasn't come out. But then when his true self does come out, it's like, you know what? Let's put that away. Let's not let that come out ever again. I always go back to that the soap scene. The soap scene was the one that it's like really took a turning point where it's like, this is not going to, I mean, this is definitely going to end, but this is not going to end well. And I feel I got the ick with him, but I also felt very bad with him because I could tell he didn't understand. It was already weird because I think he had like broken the screen, like the did he break the screen door then, or was that another?
The glass door.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
the
the one he
glass door in the
stumbles
back.
through, and
Yeah, because he walked through that and broke it. Then he was saying something about his friend's daughter, and obviously all of Austin's friends like have this bond, because I mean they just don't, you know, guys just don't sing "My Boo" a cappella without having, you know, a definite history, which I loved. Once they started singing that, I was like, oh my god, I love you guys. We could be friends. Like, forget Craig. I will hang with you guys. But oh god, every time he just tried to like reinvent himself or like recapture those moments with Austin, they just went so horrendously wrong. And then the repercussions were like, we lost Tammy and the police had to be called, and then they had a giant party for her, and some random guy just starts going off on him, and it's like that Tammy's a saint, and yeah, Tammy's great. And I love the fact that Tammy's friend that she talks to, Josh Segarra, who plays Devin, my god,
the
that
fireman,
guy
yeah.
is in so many things, and I love him in every single thing that he's in. He's in Abbott Elementary a little bit. He's in the other two. I mean, he's everywhere. And I love him. And the fact that they had him be Devin, because I mean, he's devastatingly handsome. Like, it just speaks the world. And when Tammy when they find Tammy, they have this huge party at Craig's house that apparently he had nothing to do with, because he was kind of out of it. And then Devin gives this speech about how amazing Tammy is, and you know, their son comes in and they're like all hugging like they're the family unit, and Craig's like, what's going on? It's like, dude, what do you expect? Like, you lost your wife, like you barely know what's going on. But he also kind of like is like acting like he's a victim. It's like you are putting yourself in these situations to make these horrendous things happen. But then he has, you know, then he kind of redeems himself, and then he doesn't.
Right, and it goes back to that kind of self-sabotage idea that Mike was getting at. But you know, it's another thing I was kind of messaging with Pat about was the Devin character. You know, at that, I think we should rewind the tape a bit and talk about the sewer, because Craig and Austin go down there, they kind of have a little adventure and nothing happens. Later on, Craig decides he's going to take Tammy down into the sewer, and she's not into it. He messes everything up because he doesn't know which way to go, because it's like a tunnel system. He drops the flashlight and then he loses his phone or something, and Tammy gets lost in the sewer, and she's lost down there for days, and Craig doesn't quite know what to do. She mysteriously shows up, because for a while you're like, wait, is Tammy dead? Is this movie gonna go that dark? Not quite. But she's discovered, and she rediscovers herself, as we come to find out. Nice choice of words, Ian. She actually achieves orgasm in the sewer, and that is a kind of a spiritual awakening for her. And she decides she wants more from her life than just starting this flower business. She actually gets on TV on a morning weather spot with Austin a little bit, which Craig sees. She rekindles her friendship, or at least strengthens it, with Devin, who was her ex-boyfriend. Now, what I got into the conversation with Pat about was, were they hooking up? I don't know that they were.
No.
Because I feel like if this was, I keep bringing up Universal because I think they were the old school people. But if this was like a big, broad comedy, yes, she definitely would have left the schlubby idiot husband for the hot firefighter, and they would have been having sex. But she says specifically, yeah, he's got a pool house or a back house or something that he's letting me stay in while I get on my feet. I believe that.
Yeah.
Because the speech that Devin gives at that party, even though he's like hugging Tammy and the son and everything, it's not like sexual, it's not romantic, it's like a profound statement of friendship.
Friendship.
Again, the people writing this movie off is like, oh, it's, you know, just dumb. I don't think they're paying attention. There's so much going on here. Speaking of things that are going on, I'm going to pull over, catch up on some comments because we got them. Brokeback Mountain. Funny you mentioned that, Katie. The plot of this movie, says David Wilt, sounds very much similar to Heath Ledger's final movie, Brokeback Mountain, of how it involves a homosexual relationship. I think The Dark Knight was Ledger's last movie.
It was actually a Terry Gilliam film.
Oh yes.
Oh, that's right.
He died while he was making it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I was wrong as well. But but you mentioned that Kate Mara was in Brokeback Mountain. It's one of those things. Again, I think if this were a different kind of like mainstream movie, there would have been a joke about like, oh, Craig is secretly gay for Austin or something. I think another character kind of insinuates that. I don't know if it was Tammy or somebody kind of like throws it out there. They never really do anything with it. I never get the sense that, Craig may be attracted to Austin because, I mean, it's Paul Rudd with a mustache, but I think he's more attracted to, as the kids would say, his aura than anything going further than that.
I felt like he was more enamored by him than maybe necessarily attracted to him. It's just like, like you said, his aura. He just wants to be in his orbit and like gather whatever energy he has because it just builds him up and makes him the best version of himself until he then becomes a bigger orbit and just blows up that star. And
But I said we would get to comments. We'll continue on. But something that I can't remember which of the two of you brought it up, but it's that Craig actually gave Austin the advice to go for it, to apply for the was that okay? Great. To apply for the morning position because he was stuck on kind of late night weather. If there was a shortcoming to the movie besides Robinson's kind of like dialed up in almost every case, I think it's that they didn't explore that one moment of insight that he had that was able to help someone that he thought was cooler than he was. If you think that the movie is kind of going down that path, as it gets towards the end, but then that last madcap 15 minutes where Craig goes and actually crashes Austin's party, literally. I like the way the movie resolves itself, but I feel like there is other universe where there's a different A24 that released the kind of emotionally, intellectually satisfying version where Craig does learn some lessons that he is enough, he's smart enough, and darn it, Austin's friends like him. Yeah. But that's just me. Sajiwa popping in from a dinner break, dropping into this app for a minute. Glad to have you, sir. One person I know walked out of the movie and said it's just looking at a socially weird person. There's no story there. I'd be curious to find out.
They missed the whole point.
Right.
Yeah.
But I want to know when they walked out. Was it 10 minutes in? Was it an hour in? Was it right before the end credits? Movie was funny throughout, but an underdeveloped story. And you've got a lot more comments here, so we'll get into that. So I'm going to put a pin in that one. It's fine if people do not want to hang out with Craig. I understand.
I agree with that.
Movie and script would have been better if it showed Craig's wife had some weird side that makes that relationship work. And we kind of talked about that. Like, what was what attracted them initially?
She kind of became like her mother. She got attracted to a narcissist, and she doesn't want to wind up like her, where she's stuck with him to the end. Like, she wants to get a divorce and get the hell out of there as soon as possible, probably.
Well, it's interesting because when you look at their son and then his girlfriend, you kind of wonder like what their relationship's like, because she doesn't say a word every single time we see her. And, she's not outgoing and all that stuff. And it's like, was that Tammy when they met? Is there, it's like, this is a whole thing, like, this is a generational thing that's going on. And I hope that their son isn't like that, but I don't know, maybe.
Well, that's an interesting avenue to explore. I would point out that I want to get the son's name because I don't want to keep calling the son Stephen.
I know his real name, but it's
Stephen.
Yes.
Yeah. He is he's very loving towards his mother, but very hostile towards his father. So it's a different kind of energy. I like where you're going with this, Katie. Like, was that Tammy at one point, just kind of like being the sideshow to the main attraction. But I feel like in the Craig situation, it would have been the wild and funny guy. In the Steven situation, it's more like maybe he does have a wild and funny side, and she's just seeing the version that's at home that really can't deal with his father's lameness and his mom's illness. But yeah, it's the same kind of dynamic, but with a different aspect on the, what I'll call this spouse or the significant other. Big tonal issues with characters and overall movie. The wife character was like in another movie. Maybe disassociation is her problem, not being connected to the reality she lives in. And this is kind of what we've been talking about all night, Stu. I think it works. I think she is in the right movie, and Kate Mara is playing it exactly as she needs to. I think it works in this story. It's just that we're kind of dropped into these characters' lives and left to wonder what the rest of their life is like. Not in a detrimental way for me, personally. I think we get enough here to see, okay, there's definitely a backstory. I would love to know it, but even if I never find out, there's enough richness in the performances and in the writing to kind of carry me through, except that last 15 minutes, which again, I really liked, but I'm like, oh, dude, you didn't have to crash into the sports car.
Yeah.
All right. And sometimes we can have a half-baked comedy. It does not have to be high-quality cinema. This is one of those movies. Now you're straying into the hard criticism, Sajid.
Yeah.
I love it, but I can't follow you there, sir. In a way, the movie is like Seinfeld show. No hugging, no learning at the end. Okay, I can be on board with that. Although there is a really touching moment where in the madcap ending, where Craig he pulls out the golden gun and is waving it around to kind of cover up for the fact that Austin has once again lost his toupee. And it's weird because Austin has such a bond with these friends, but I get the feeling they don't know that he's wearing a hairpiece. That's one thing that he hasn't shared with them. Because when he's behind that table and he's giving the eyes to Craig, like, he's petrified. And he's not petrified that his weird neighbor has a gun. He's petrified of his friends finding out his secret, which again is something you could talk about for an hour. And at the very end, when Craig is in that cop car and he looks over at Austin gives him that wink, like, hey man, thanks for maintaining bro code. Now, did this actually happen? Was it all in Craig's head? I like to think that they're never going to talk to each other again, but he at least got that one little boost, like, hey, the cool guy threw me a bone, so I'm okay.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a restraining order after that scene. And I mean, at the least, there's definitely going to be jail time for Craig. So yeah, they're not going to see each other again.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the movie is after this. It's probably just Craig working in a convenience store and then dying of old age, but nobody wants to see that movie.
Friend divorce. I don't know what that is. What that's called. Yeah.
Oh no. Here's what it is. They're gonna do that legacy sequel thing, like Clerks, where they wait like 15 years to make the sequel. Craig gets out of jail and he's into an apartment. Austin has gotten divorced, and so they're living in the same apartment building, and they become frenemies. There you go.
Oh, grumpy old men for the 2040s.
Yeah. Grumpy old frenemies.
Grumpy old frenemies. I like it.
It writes itself.
It does.
No, please, no one make this movie. No one make that movie.
All improv. All improv. Yeah.
but not improved. Friendship, says Sujua, is the opposite of Amir Matla's Whale. Both are about getting older in the suburbs, but the friends in Whale are much better people. That's an interesting point. Definitely, folks, go and seek out the films of Amir Matla, friend of the show and former guest. But the key difference is Amir makes movies that are more grounded and realistic, and yes, populated with better, if not flawed, people. This is a completely different, like, bonkers dark comedy. But I do take your point. Sajua chiming in with a super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Interesting discussion. I posted up a bunch of other thoughts already. Part 2 of the discussion, recording on 6/1 with an actor from the movie. Stay tuned.
Ooh.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. We'll leave that as a teaser. All right, gang. what else do we want to say about friendship? Because I feel like we've been around the globe with this movie, but is there anything that we're missing that we want to talk about?
I
I
would
mean,
say,
oh,
go ahead. No,
No,
you go first.
you go,
All
Steve.
right, so
Mike.
I guess if you're watching this movie, look out for people like Craig, either for your own safety or try to get them some help and actually be a friend to them. So I'll just say that.
Very nice. And I think to kind of piggyback on that, like I understand your point about him possibly needing help. And maybe that's the case, but I feel like he might not have always been in that position. It might just have been so long that a lot of these issues that he has with not having friends or being kind of awkward and estranged from the people that he should be closest to have kind of compounded. Maybe he does need some therapy, but I think at some point he just needed someone that he could connect with. And at some point that stopped being his wife. At some point that stopped being his kid. And he's living it. It's weird because there's no other, from what I can recall, interaction with neighbors other than Austin and his friends that he kind of brings into the neighborhood for a couple of parties. He does feel very isolated down there at the end of the block. So maybe that's something else. So yes, to what you said, Mike, be a friend to somebody, and it'll change everybody's life for the better. Katie, final thoughts.
Oh, what does he say to him? Always be curious. There's something that he says. Something like that. Stay curious, Craig Waterman. And one of the things about the film, and we were kind of discussing this about when, Austin's hairpiece comes out, and we, you don't think that, from what it seems like, that even his true friends know that he has that. It is that little bit that when you have friends, there's like friends that are acquaintances, there's friends, but it's like, it's knowing the really hard truths, like the good and the bad, that love you, no matter what. And that's what true friendship is. And, from the get-go, like, Craig was enamored by Austin, like, this bigger than life, like he's on TV, he's in a band, he wants to get a, Corvette when he makes his money. It's like, wow, he's got it all. And then when he sees his flaws, he's like, dude, it's okay. That's fine. But at the same time, when they see Craig's flaws, it's like, although Craig's flaws really are horrible. So, but it's one of those things, like, when you have friends, like, they will love you no matter what. Like, that is what true friendship is. And it is, like, Craig is a true friend to Austin, and those are hard to find. But when you have them, and when you have someone that sees you and wants you to be a better person, and once brings out that light in you, you really want to hold on to it. And sometimes you bottom out your minivan and crash into their yellow Corvette when they don't go along with that. And that's what happens in this film. But I think it's like I told Ian when we were pre-gaming with this, my biggest thing is go to the bathroom before you see this, because you may piss your pants with laughter. And I actually sent that to Allied as my pull quote.
Very nice.
Very well done. Yeah, and the one thing we didn't really talk about, we talked about the party at the end of the film, but the sequence of events preceding that party, where Tammy really does get her act together. And was it for Steve? Is for Steven's birthday? They kind of go out together at a restaurant, and then they're kind of talking back at the house, and you start to get this feeling of hope, like they might get back together, because at no point does she say, "Oh, me and Devin are totally a thing now, and I'm cutting you off, and it's never going to work." They're building their way back to, if not normalcy, then something that's like kind of what you were suggesting earlier, Mike, a starting over point, but in a non-destructive manner. But Craig can't help himself. He goes out to run some kind of an errand for Tammy.
Oh, when he licks the toad. Yeah.
No, oh my gosh, no! I forgot about the toad licking scene.
The UP.
We
Yeah.
talk about the
We
toad
totally
licking
forgot that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he just sees Austin like serving sandwiches like at a Subway, and I think he didn't get that like maybe his brain was telling him don't just look up to other people, look up to yourself. But he didn't get that, and it did open his mind in a way, but he didn't understand that it did.
But it's also, again, another dimension to this film. It's we didn't bring it up. It's partially, I think, because we saw it a few weeks ago now.
Yeah.
But there's so much going on in this movie that it almost at times has the vibe of a sketch show, but not necessarily a comedy sketch show, like a deeply disturbing sketch show. So at one point, Craig goes into a cell phone place.
Yes.
And you can tell this is a low budget movie because it looks like they put it together in about 10 minutes. And he meets this kid who, sells him the phone. He has to go back later to get another phone. But he's like, the kid's like, if you need anything stronger than alcohol, I'm your guy. So he sells Craig a lick of a toad it excretes like acid from its glands or something, like psychedelic acid. And he trips and he lays on the floor of this storage closet of this cell phone strip mall cell phone joint, and he trips out. And his fantasy is being in a Subway and seeing Paul Rudd essentially serving sandwiches. And I don't know if this is just a thing that Paul Rudd has to like have some kind of like a food endorsement in every movie because he was doing Baskin Robbins and Ghostbusters or whatever. But what I loved about it was a big laugh. Mike, you can attest to this. Yeah. For the people who, so much to talk about, even though I know we're wrapping up. I love my fellow critics, but the stuffed shirts were like, "Oh, this movie was not good." There were quite a few moments of laughter in that room. I'm like, "Oh, well, who was laughing then?" So I have like a laugh track going on because I heard and participated in some genuine guffaws. And one of the biggest was when, Craig, I kept wanting to call him Tim, pops out of his dream, his elaborate, crazy acid trip to expand his mind. He just ended up at a Subway shop. It's not just funny. It also speaks to what's going on in his mind. He doesn't have anything super powerful or weird to unlock. That's why he has to kind of glom on to the awesomeness of other people. But man, that's a funny scene. I was not expecting that.
I forgot about that. Yeah, because that's the thing, Craig, I think during the film and just in this doesn't span like a number of years. I mean, I feel like it's only like maybe a couple months or maybe a little bit longer because you've got like sort of a holiday thing and something like that. But it doesn't go that because he's always wearing his coat. So it's always like winter or something like that. But during that amount of time, I feel like, if I recall, like he has to go back to that cell phone store at least like 3 or 4 times because he breaks or does something with his phone. That is a lot. And then that kind of tells you like the character of Craig, and especially, I forgot about that when he's in the sewer and the flashlight goes out and then he drops the phone and he can't find, and then it's like, there's one more phone that he broke. But good call, recalling the cell phone guy because he's so sweet.
Yeah.
Well, and also, you kind of wonder if this is another opportunity for the movie to diverge from the, I guess, the more mainstream attitude of it. Because it turns out this guy, he's like, 16 or 18. He's not old enough to drink, but he's like, I can hook you up with drugs. And you kind of wonder if later there's going to be some kind of a big scandal where he's, Craig is trying to pick up this underage boy at the cell phone store or get him busted or something. There's that whole not really a subplot with the mayor, because once you realize that the underground sewers lead into City Hall and then Craig gets the job, the big contract is with the mayor, you're like, oh, they're going to get busted going into the mayor's office. And they're like, no, they set this stuff up, but they don't do anything with it. And it's not that they leave it hanging in a sloppy manner. It's that they set you up to expect something and deliver something completely different, but even more satisfying than the kind of rote, like, oh, yeah, here we go. I know what the next 10 minutes is going to be. I didn't have that feeling at all watching Friendship, which was a nice surprise.
Yeah. And Craig keeps having meltdowns, but they keep happening in such different ways. It's kind of like one of those things you're like, oh my God, how are they going to get into this situation? And how are they going to get out of that? Which kind of has like a, like a sitcom-y feel, but there's way more subtext to it. It's not just another episode of Seinfeld or Always Sunny. It's really kind of like its own unique thing that you may not get at all, or you may find profound. Who knows?
Yeah. Well put, Mike. I want to say, Andrew DeYoung, I don't know you. I don't know your work or whatever you did to build yourself up to your feature writing and directing debut, but congratulations. And I look forward to seeing what you come up with next. Hopefully it's not a sophomore slump. Why even put that out in the universe? Probably because I saw Bring Her Back the other day. And, we'll be talking about that coming up. Love the Philippines, but okay. No more of that. All right. Look, Katie, I see. We're going to talk about it.
I was just kind of on the fence with it. I was just like, but yeah.
Stay tuned, everybody. For Bring Her Back.
Knives ready.
But okay, so thank you all for hanging out. Thanks to the folks hanging out in the chat for this discussion of friendship. Hopefully, again, we've had the spoiler banner on the entire hour plus. So if you haven't seen the movie, I feel like if you have not seen the movie, you can still go watch it and maybe appreciate some of the things that we've talked about that you can look for and maybe draw some of your own conclusions. Come back and tell us why we're wrong in the comments. We'll leave those open, or why we're right. But coming up this weekend, Katie, we got a plan to talk about a movie. I was just going to do a recorded thing, but I think I want to do it live if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
Okay. Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Time. I'll be back here launching a new mini-series called Class of 95. Now, I graduated from high school, 30 years ago this summer. So we've been taking a look at some of the movies, kind of the teen-centric films of my misspent youth, some of which I love, some of which I didn't quite appreciate until later. We're going to kick things off with Clueless from 1995, that classic comedy, and also featuring Paul Rudd. So were the seeds of friendship planted all the way back in Clueless? Who knows? But, well, you know what? Oh, my gosh. I'm kind of seeing a connection between Paul Rudd's character in Clueless and what he ended. Ooh,
yeah. You see
they're
it?
about this same age. Okay, we're going to come back to this. Anyway, but yeah, 3 p.m. Central on Sunday. Come hang out here with us. I'll put a link in the description whenever I get the actual live stream set up. But yeah, and thank you for hanging out, Katie and Mike. It's been really fun discussion. I really appreciate it.
Yes, friends. It was very nice discussing friendship with you both.
Yeah. Yes. It's nice discussing friends with friends. Now I'm going to go crazy and have a meltdown.
No, don't. And don't drive any florist vans anywhere.
Yeah.
I didn't finish all my points. It's just something like that.
All right. Well, thanks everybody out there for hanging out. If you like this live stream, please like, subscribe, and ring the bells and all that good stuff. Please support all of Earth's Mightiest Critics, including Katie and Mike. All their information is down below. And yeah, join us back next week. We got Memorial Day weekend coming up. We got some big movies coming out. So in addition to the Clueless show on Sunday, we're going to be back next Wednesday talking about Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. Here on Kicking the Seat. We'll see about that, and we'll see what we think about the last installment of the Mission Impossible franchise, which is also almost 30 years old. Wow. But yeah, until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much, and take care. I should end the stream now. I got to press the buttons. I can't just will this into existence.
I could do that.
Yeah. I got to see.